Welcome to Texas Ring of Fire Playoff Edition. The Surge, Houston. There will be no Austin talk, and there will be no FC Dallas talk. RB and Jose will be on tomorrow, and I'll probably be on tomorrow as well, depending on when they do the show. But they had plans that came up. RB got stuck at a carnival, which is also known as Austin FC season for this year, and Jose had some issues with the family health wise. So hope all is well with him and his family. But talking Houston, I brought in my good friend Edson, who also covers RGV USL down in the Valley. So we'll also probably talk briefly about San Antonio FC. Because I know he's such a huge fan of San Antonio FC. But, all seriousness, just to kind of get his thoughts on the USL playoffs. For once, it was craziness in the East and not the West. Normally, it's the craziness is in the West. West went pretty much chalk, with the exception of San Diego Phoenix, which I think a lot of people thought that was a 50-50 match to begin with. RIP San Diego Loyal. But Edson, we're bringing you on to talk Houston Dynamo, Real Salt Lake. If you look at the season head-to-head, 14 wins for Houston, 11 draws, 13 wins for RSL. On the year, Houston dominated the games, especially the late ones in August, by a combined score of 6-1 for that year. So, as somebody that follows Houston from your time with previous podcasts, it's kind of odd to see Houston being kind of a favorite come playoff time, but I've got them going pretty far kind of in the MLS prediction here. I got them getting past Real Salt Lake, and then I think I even have them getting past the next round, depending on who wins on that. Your thoughts on Houston and how Houston finished the year, and then kind of looking at the head-to-head against Real Salt Lake.
Honestly, like for me, I'm pretty ecstatic about the Dynamo finally being back in the playoffs. I think it was based on everything that the front office did, all the changes that they made into the roster. I felt that it was going to be fair for the Houston Dynamo to at least make it into the playoffs one way or another, whether it was, at the bottom of, those playoff spots or where they were at right now. I honestly did not think that they would make it as high as they did. I did feel like I'm more of a kind of like, we'll take it cautiously. Like, yeah, we've got there were a lot of changes that were made, a lot of good changes. But I don't want to kind of be overconfident and then, the team under delivers. I think RGV has done that multiple times. So I kind of learned my lesson there. But I like the way the Houston Dynamo ended the season. I think it was the cherry on the cake was being able to go to, over to Portland and getting a really, really good results.
Convincing too.
Yeah, convincing result. A result that kind of harked back to that, the last time that the Houston Dynamo was, you can say, relevant, which was, back with Wilmer Cabrera, with that epic, Mauro Manota celebration over to Portland's supporters groups. So, I'm feeling really confident because even despite those two games where there were a lot of questions that were asked with talking about the FC Dallas game, which ended 0-0, that Montreal game where they ended up losing, 2 points right at the very end. But then they come back and they have convincing victories, a 5-1 victory at home against Colorado, and then, like I said, traveling to Portland, defeating them 3-1. I think the Houston Dynamo are going to be coming in with such great momentum that, and especially that you're going to be, starting off at home on Sunday. And from what I hear is that things are looking very optimistic as far as attendance is going to be concerned. I know for sure that the supporters group section, the Hustletown supporters, it's sold out. It's sold out. So I think that is going to be a very positive push for the Houston Dynamo in this particular game. I think the biggest thing about it is for me is how well Hector Herrera has been playing. Obviously Steve Clark, in goal, being, I think he ended up 4th in clean sheets.
At 12, yeah, he was up
Yeah.
he was up at the top, yeah. 12 clean sheets, 73. Zach McGrath from Salt Lake had 9 and a 71.2% for that as well. But yeah, it's
so overall for me, I think like I said, the only thing I said like a couple of weeks before, my biggest question was the fact that as far as strikers, like it really doesn't. You only have pretty much the Corey Baird, right? Most of the goals have been scored, by your midfielders like Bassi, Herrera, your wingers, and all of that. So that was my only question for the Houston Dynamo coming into the playoffs. But I think at this point, Corey Baird's coming in, with good momentum as well. So he's going to have that motivation. If you provide him, with balls inside the box, I think he's got the momentum to get the job done offensively. So I'm feeling confident. I'm not saying that it's going to be an easy series against Real Salt Lake, but I do think that Houston has what it takes to be able to get out of this round of the playoffs and into the next round.
And you brought up form. And I don't think a lot of people realize this. Since they came back from, the Leagues Cup in August, the Dynamo have played 11 matches. They only had 1 loss, which was an away match at Sporting Kansas City. If memory serves me right, they were missing some players.
They rotated the squad for that because of the Open Cup final.
But they've won 4-6 and drew 4 and lost 1. So if you're looking for a team that we talked about that's peaking at the right time, when you look at the Dynamo and how they've gone into the postseason probably as one of the hottest teams, in MLS with the only loss. And I know from following you for a decade-ish, for that here, losing to Kansas City's right up there with losing with FC Dallas as a Dynamo fan. So that probably left a little bit of a sour taste. But to me, and 2 of those go against, RSL, Real Salt Lake for that here. So to me, the schedule kind of shapes up pretty nice, for Houston. The 29th, they do that. Then they go on the road on November 6th. And then the third match is to be determined, and I'm assuming that depends on how other rounds or not other rounds, but how other of these 2
and if it's needed to begin with.
Along those lines here. Home record for Houston is pretty impressive. 11 wins, 4 draws, and 2 losses for that here. Salt Lake's is pretty good as well. They do better on the road. They've got 8 wins, 4 draws, and 5 losses. To me, I think that second match at Salt Lake, where Houston has kind of struggled a little bit, 3-5-9 compared to 6-4-7. So even RSL isn't as strong there. But to me, it'll be interesting if Houston can. I think most people would favor Houston at home for that here. But if they can knock out a win, even if it's in PKs, because one of the MLS things about this is if it's a draw after 90 minutes, it goes straight to PKs in this round here. So to me, get the win at home, try to get the win in Salt Lake. If not, probably play a more defensive method. For that here, and then knowing that you've got the ability to come home and play that third match for that here, and it's not May 6th on there. That's where I didn't delete what was on there before. But your kind of thoughts on how you see this series shaping up. I'm assuming you're probably predicting, especially with a loud crowd in Houston. There'll be, unfortunately, there's no Astros in the World Series, so you don't have to contend with that. The Rockets are kicking off this year, but it's early in the season for that here. So, your thoughts on how you kind of seeing this progress, in the 2 to 3 games for that here.
I really think that I think people need to understand that. I mean, at least in my eyes, even though the Houston Dynamo, for the most part, was proved to be better than Real Salt Lake. I mean, you're looking at, a 3-0 win at RSL, 3-1 win here. Obviously, you got the 0-0 at the first game, their first matchup of the season. But the playoffs are a different animal.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people always say like, oh, the playoffs is basically pretty much, you can say it's a different tournament, right? So even when you've got when you were dominant during the season against a certain team, they can come in the playoffs and give you the surprise of your life. So we can't, the Dynamo cannot be too overconfident of Real Salt Lake. I mean, you look at their ending standings. They're only separated by a point. And so the Houston Dynamo are going to have to take advantage of home field advantage. The fact that if in case it does go into the third game, it's going to be back. It's going to be back home, and you have to take advantage of the situation. It's one of those things where the Dynamo are, see, I don't like saying that the Dynamo should focus on getting a draw on the road, because, like you said, number one, it goes to PKs, but number two, a lot of times when your mentality isn't just getting a draw, you end up losing. Right. You always have to try and go for the win, even though your road stats say that you aren't good on the road. I mean, you gotta try something in order to be able to clinch going into the next round. Really, with Real Salt Lake, you have to also look that Real Salt Lake really aren't that great at home either.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I believe that where it could be the difference, where it's going to be a little bit more statistically equal when they play at RSL compared to where they play to when they play at the Shell. So I think it's gonna be a series where it's gonna end in the 2 games. I do think that the Houston Dynamo can be able to pull it off. But like I said, we cannot be overconfident. We cannot minimize that Real Salt Lake is in the playoffs for a reason.
Correct. And they're a quality team. They're an experienced team when it comes to the playoffs as well for that here. So, this is probably a little bit of a homer pick for me as far as like players to watch, but I think Kristen Arango from RSL Ford, who's came in after the transfer deadline, and then being a USL guy, Diego Luna transferred from El Paso. It'll be interesting to kind of see how he does. He spent a little bit of time away, I think, at the World Cup for the U20s, I think it was this year.
Mm-hmm.
That he participated in. It'll be interesting for there, but name obviously Hector Herrera is probably the leader of it here. But if you could pick one player that you think that's gonna be the difference, and then one kind of sleeper that maybe is not well known, but you could see them maybe stepping up for Houston in a big way since it is the playoffs.
I think the player that I think is going to be, coming up in this series, I think it's going to be Griffin Dorsey. I think Griffin Dorsey coming up on the attack, has proven to be a key element in the attack for the Houston Dynamo. So that's going to be my player to look at. And as far as a sleeper goes, man, that's a really good question. But I'm gonna go with Quinones. I think Quinones has been playing decently when he's come up, and I feel like maybe a lot of people don't give him enough credit for what he brings into the table for the Houston Dynamo. So I think those are my two players to look out for the Dynamo.
So I know we got to get you out probably in the next 5 minutes, but just kind of briefly talking USL here. For here, thoughts on El Paso, Orange County. They lost 1-0 on, in my opinion, it was a great free kick goal. I give them all the credit. You could probably blame the goalkeeper and how he set up the wall a little bit, maybe, for leaving the far post open. But there was a foul that wasn't called, and then a flop that was called that gave OC the winning goal. Although, truth be told, they were the better team on the night for that here. San Antonio got by a tough Colorado Springs team at Toyota Field 1-0 as well. They traveled to Sacramento, and in my opinion, whoever wins this match, whether it's Sacramento or San Antonio, in my opinion, are the favorite to win the USL championship. In the next few weeks for the here. I know Phoenix is still out there, Orange County is still out there. Out east, you got Charleston, Legion, Detroit City, and
Louisville.
Lou City, who will make it to their 1,000th Eastern Conference final by default since Pittsburgh decided to shut it down against Detroit for that year. So, but your kind of thoughts on the USL Championship? Real quick here. I know you got probably about 2 or 3 minutes before we need to get you out of here.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually very pleased at how entertaining these games have been in the USL playoffs. Obviously, you got the back and forth of San Diego versus Phoenix. I honestly thought that the game between San Antonio and the Switchback was going to be very tight.
And it was,
and it really ended up being like that. And sometimes it's just a matter of who's able to pounce on the opportunities to get that ball into the back of the net. And San Antonio, I think at the end of the day, San Antonio has a bit more of that presence, that calmness, that mentality is of, I know what I'm doing here in the playoffs, and that confidence. A lot of the times, like it really, pushes the team forward, past other opponents. When you go into a game where you feel everything's going wrong, you aren't able to score, those leaders that, hey, nothing, it's okay, we just continue to do what you're doing. And then when it does happen, that obviously brings confidence. But you got to get yourself into that situation, which is what San Antonio has been doing under Alan Marcina in these last couple of years. I mean, last year you guys won the championship as well, and I think El Paso. My personal opinion is that, number one, I was surprised they were able to squeak by into the playoffs, and number two, I was actually also very surprised that they were able to hold Orange County to one goal, and it in such a controversial position as well. But I think at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at how consistent Orange County has been during the regular season and how inconsistent El Paso was, I think it's only fair. I think it was only fair for Orange County to go through.
Well, Edson, thank you for hopping on. We had scheduled the show, and then RB and Jose had things that popped up last minute. But I still wanted to do the Houston show because we set it up here, and you're unavailable for tomorrow. Tomorrow we will be back for episode 57, part B. I guess you could say, or RB will probably because he's an Austin fan. Click another check mark because he needs all the wins he can get. But Edson, thank you for hopping on. Always enjoy your knowledge, especially about the Dynamo. Hopefully, they'll be able to advance to the next stage to the semifinal round. Then we'll be able to have you back on. When we might see if we can get you back on in between the first match and second match. I believe there will be time to be able to do that, 7 days. So yeah, be able to do that here. So maybe throughout the playoffs, we'll be able to bring you on pending your schedule. But I know you got to run. So thank you, Edson. And like I said, here for everybody that follows Texas Ring of Fire, thank you for that here. And Arthur, he mentioned that he has the Dynamo winning it all for that here. But this has been episode 57 of Texas Ring of Fire. Thank you, and hope everybody has a great night.